Audio's not on. Hey, everybody. Awesome. So excited to see you guys. And just, I wanted to reach out and share some information with you guys. It's such a crazy time right now. And I know that there's a lot of you that I've been talking to on the phone, and I can just see that it's a really emotional time for you. And I wanted to share with you a couple of things that I have learned over the years on just managing my mind. I call it, you're the CEO of your own mind. And sometimes we forget that. And I want you to know right at the beginning that all the feelings that you're feeling are totally okay. Like, be with it, sit with it, relax into it, but don't indulge in it. I think of it like a friend coming to you and talking to you, and they're sharing with you all this crazy emotion that's going on. I'm worried about this, I'm frustrated with that, right? And just having that friend be on the park bench and listen to it and feel it and not really need to make a decision about it. That's helped me a lot, because then I can like put it outside of myself. But I want to kind of give you some tools that I've learned over the years on how to manage the difference between our emotional brain and our logical brain, because they're very, very different. And I had to use this a lot when I was working with people who were struggling with addiction. And so let's talk a little bit about the emotional brain. So the emotional brain is like the reactive brain. It serves a really, really important purpose, and that is survival. It is fight or flight or freeze. That's the emotions that you get are all designed to move you in one of those directions. So it's a reactive part. It's the action part of our brain. It wants us to do something to get out of the situation that we're in. But there are very, very few things in this current world that we live in where we have got to run or fight or freeze right this very second. So a lot of times I try and exaggerate the position that my brain is thinking about, and is pulling up emotions, right? And think of it like, am I going to die from corona right this very second? Am I going to starve if there's not food in the stores? I try and take a really exaggerated emotional position, because then it helps me to feel like, yeah, I'm being a little bit maybe overreacting. Maybe this is the emotional part of my brain that's asking me to fight, flight, or freeze, okay? And then I try and think of a worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? Like, let's follow this all the way through, this emotion that I'm feeling. And really, most of these emotions are designed to help us not to die. So the worst case scenario is I die, or someone I love dies, right? So, but what happens if I die? Well, I don't have to worry about this anymore, right? So I try and continue to follow this down a chain. What happens if someone I love dies? Well, it's going to be sad. I'm going to feel loss. I'm going to feel loneliness. I'm going to feel all these different emotions, but eventually I'll figure that out, because I've dealt with people who have died before, and I'll be okay. The feeling is uncomfortable, but I can manage that feeling, not long term, but I can manage that in that moment if that happens. So trying to use our logical brain to like help us manage that emotion. So I want you to understand something. The negative emotional impact when we think of loss or something extreme is twice as intense as a positive effect of a gain. And this plays into building a business, because we think of the loss, someone saying no to us, somebody saying, I don't want to use the product, I don't want to listen to the business, I don't want to do it with you, whatever it is, that loss ends up having 2 times an effect on us than when someone says yes. So just know that out of the gates, and understand and use that to manage your emotions, because then we can predict that. I know that I'm going to feel a greater loss at a no than the excitement I'm going to feel from a yes. So I want you to think about the drama brain. And some of us are drawn to drama. It might be how we were raised. It might be some of the things that were out of our control when we were younger that's caused us to have this drama brain to try and prepare for more drama and lessen the impact. But think about how you're responding when you have this drama brain. So think of, let's use the schools closing. So you might have said, like, the school's closed abruptly and I was given no warning, and now my kids won't have food, and now I have to do the teacher's job. I have to teach my kids, and I'm not qualified to do that. And I was going to build my business this week, so now I can't do that, and I can't exercise, so that means I won't lose weight and I'll be fat, right? So if you maybe went on this drama chain in your brain, understand that's drama brain. We might have had some past situations that have led us to create this drama brain to protect ourselves. But what else could we say? How could we replace that? Wow, the schools made a choice for the safety of my children and families in our community to prevent further spread, and they decided to close and take action today. So see if you can find a way when you're dealing with your drama brain that you can talk logically through this and see if you can find another solution versus the overreaction or the drama. Okay, so when we're dealing with mind management between our logical brain and the emotional brain, don't indulge in either one, because one is not better than the other. They are both can be equally as damaging. So think of it like a boardroom where all ideas are welcome, all emotions and feelings are welcome, and thank those emotions and feelings and the brain for their ideas and input, and then say, but I'm in charge and I'm going to make that decision based on the information that I'm given on both sides, the emotion, the maybe irrationalness, and the other side, which is, you know, thinking clearly. I'm going to take all of that into consideration and I'm going to make the decision. So be that CEO, managing these thoughts that are coming in, because you're a different person than you were 1 year ago, then 5 years ago, then 10 years ago. But our brain tends to go back to trauma, to heartache, and really tries to protect us from those things. So we have to move forward and say, even though that has happened to me in the past, I'm willing to take this risk and take all the information and make a decision. So let's look at the logical brain, because the logical brain can be just as damaging. It doesn't like the unknown. It wants to figure things out. It wants to take action very quickly. Based on all the information. So it loves to consume mass amounts of information. It wants to know all the information, every road, every possibility. So just think of when it's consuming that, it makes it difficult for us to be able to make a decision because there's too many unknown variables. So think about our coronavirus brain right now. You turn on the news and the media gives you an unlimited amount of information, changing statistics of deaths and people having it and age groups dying and people living and all of these things. And most of it is designed around fear to keep you watching. If it was like, hey, everything's great, don't you worry about it, we'd be like, oh, great, turn off the TV and go and do something we want to do. So it's designed to make you watch it because you need more information. It knows that the brain works like this. It wants 100% of the information before it makes a decision. But I want you to think about this. Is there really any different information than the information we got 10 days ago? Not really, right? If you look at the things that are being said, maybe they were optional 10 days ago and now they're mandatory, but it's the same thing. Stay at home, only go out for essentials, wash your hands, right? Those kind of situations. The funny thing is, the same information that this is the same information we would have received for a lot of things, just the flu. Hey, be aware it's flu season, stay home, be prepared, wash your hands, right? A lot of these same things. But what is driving our brain nuts right now is that we can't figure it out. And it's driving a lot of people nuts. It's driving governors nuts and presidents of countries nuts, right? I'm sure the CDC is going crazy. So it's because our brain wants a solution. It wants to figure it out. And it wants to solve the recklessness of the emotional brain. So we have all these emotional triggers and our brain's like, wow, that side of your brain is out of control. We have got to figure this out and get logical and make this decision. So I think of it like a math problem. My sister is a math geek. I love her. She loves to do proofs and weird things like that. But there is out there right now a math equation that's called the $1 million math equation. If you solve this problem, you're going to get $1 million. But here's the thing. That's what our brain thinks is happening right now, is I've got to solve this $1 million math equation this very instant, and I can't make a decision until I do. And it's trying to gather all this data. So we need to dial down the input, and we need to keep it simple, and we need to get reliable sources. This is the same thing with building your business. There's going to be a lot of information out there, right? You're going to have this person's training and that person's training, and all of the tools on Zonly and the system, right? And all of the videos and lives we're doing, and your team lives, and people's opinions on how to do it, and what worked for them and what worked for that person, and all this data is coming in. And it becomes this math problem that you can't solve, and it's shutting you down and making it impossible for you to build the business that you know you can build from that feeling that you felt when you saw it and thought, I could do this. That intuition feeling that we get. So dial down the input. Get reliable sources that are helping you, that you can trust, and be very specific. There's a lot of great, I'm not saying one's better than the other. You need to find what's working for you and keep it very, very simple. So remember that you have dealt with chaos before in your life. You have. If you're a mom or a dad, you've had the moment where your child comes to you at midnight, or as you're tucking them in, and just after all the stores have closed, and told you they have a science project due tomorrow, and it's 80% of their grade, and boom, your brain goes into solve it mode. What can I use? Do I have construction paper? Can I fit can I make something else out of it? Could we build this and do that, and how can we make this happen, right? And you solve the problem. You figured it out. You pulled it together because your brain is so great at doing that. How about a situation, men, who you've had to fix something, right? And you don't have all the right tools, and you don't have all the stuff, but it needs to be fixed right this very second. And your brain kind of goes to, okay, what about this and that? And let's pull that together. And what if we did this? And all of a sudden, you've jimmy rigged something that's going to solve the problem for that very, very second. I have a couple of situations that happened to me. So I definitely had the mom situation. I'm not very good at jimmy rigging, but I can do it, right? But one of the things that happened to me is I was driving in the middle of nowhere, Utah, and there was no cell service at the time, and I came on this accident. And there was a trucker who had pulled over, but the lady's car had flipped upside down. She had a child who was sleeping in the back of the seat, and I could see clearly that her bone had come out of her leg, that she had a fracture that was coming out. And I'd taken some basic CPR classes and first aid classes, and in this trauma situation classes, and the mom was bleeding from the back of her head. And I knew I couldn't get cell service, so I'm like, okay, can we safely move her? My brain pulled up that CPR class that I had, that trauma training class that I had, and it said, remember this, and don't forget about this, and check these things, and then, right? So I did all of that. I moved this lady and her child into my car. And the girl is freaking out, and her mom is coming in and out of consciousness. Now, I am not a trained nurse. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm like holding the little girl's hand behind me, and I am like checking on the mom to make sure, even though she's unconscious, she's breathing, right? And I know that I have 30 minutes probably until I can get to a place where I can use my cell phone. And all those things came into play, right? So our brain is good at this. Let it do what it needs to do in a situation that is dangerous or crazy or out of control, but it doesn't need to happen in this scenario where we don't know how to build our business yet. We're just learning one by one, square by square. We don't have to think of the end result. What am I going to talk about when I walk across the stage, when I hit the highest position in the company? Or what am I going to do if I bring someone else on board? Or what am I going to do, right? You don't need to do that. We just need to do the one thing right in front of us right this very, very moment. And our brain is so great at that. In fact, it will give us ideas and impressions, and we need to follow those. I think of a story of a heart surgeon, and this surgeon was going to medical school at a time when they were saying, you cannot touch the human heart. If you do it, the person will die. They don't live if you do that. But everyone was like, we need to start doing this. and he was one of the forefront people doing heart surgeries. He made a makeshift situation where he could pump blood into this heart, along with some other students and professors at the university he was going to. Well, as he became one of the first surgeons and leading surgeons in the country and in the world, he was in a surgery one day and he did not know how to fix this problem. He had never seen it, where the valve of the heart was probably as big as like 3 or 4 fingers together, and he didn't know how he was going to do it. And in his mind popped the idea of a belt being cinched up tight, like if you'd lost weight and you were trying to cinch up a belt, and he thought, I could do that. I could create sutures or whatever you do when you kind of needle things together. I don't know the technical medical term. I could pull that tight and I could make it so that valve would shrink down. So he was prepared. He had information that he needed, but in that moment where he didn't know the right thing to do, the brain put that together. So that part of our brain can be very, very helpful if we keep it focused on a solution to the problem and not thinking of a million things, possibilities. So what I'm trying to tell you is you've got this. When those things come in your mind, whether it's the panic and emotional brain or the logical brain that wants to make sure all the ducks are in a row before it takes any action, there's a way that we can do it. So we can slow down the emotional part of the brain by moving into logical brain activity. Isn't this funny? Because they balance each other out. So do something logical like physically writing. Write down all the things that are possibilities that you can do. Just start writing even the motions. You can, I'm so frustrated, I'm so scared, I'm so this. By just physically writing, you're going to move your brain from that fight or flight into the logical part. And it's going to start to seem not so bad as it seemed prior. You're going to be able to deal with the physical feelings and not necessarily the emotional feelings of it. So you're going to be able to say, my chest feels tight, right? My stomach's cramping. I'm getting a headache. So my heart's racing. So I can breathe in and breathe out. And you're able to do things to be able to slow that emotion down so that you can have control. I love the book by Mel Robbins called The 5-Second Rule, where she talks about counting. So as soon as that's kind of working out of control for you, you just start counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you take action. So just breathing in and out, this is going to be okay. I'm going to be able to take action, and I can always change that action. I don't have to worry about that. The other idea that I had is just focus on the thought that pops into your head and then write that thought down. Whatever is coming in, oh, I'm going to be a failure. I'm going to be a failure. No one's going to talk to me. No one's going to talk to me. I'm going to, whatever it's going to be, just keep writing those down, because the act of writing is going to take you out of the emotional part of it. So conversely, some of you might tend towards the logical brain, where you keep balancing everything out and it's not making sense to you of what direction to move forward. In that situation, I want you to take physical action. So when I was dealing with people with addiction, I would often ask them to do something physical. Like as soon as they thought about that addiction and started to really start obsess about it, they were going to run out from their house and run to the stop sign, hit the stop sign, and then run back home. Just that physical action of moving is going to slow down that logical part of your brain. And it could be just running up and down the stairs. For some people, I would actually make them make a physical, like print out a stop sign picture and put it up somewhere, and they would run up the stairs, hit the stop sign, and then run back down, especially when it was cold. So think of something physical you can do. Pick up the phone, make a phone call, text somebody immediately, recognize and write down the patterns of things that are happening, of patterns of emotions. When I think this, then I do this. When I do this, I do that. And getting out of that, just something physical and tangible. I love that writing works for both of them, because it basically pulls those two things together, the emotional and the logical brain. Some really great books if you're looking to expand this, if you're realizing you have some struggles with this and your emotions and your logic gets away from you and you're unable to take action. Some of my favorite books are The Four Agreements. I love that. And I love a book called Loving What Is, because we cannot change anyone else around us. We can only change how we look at things. So those are some really great books. There's tons more, but I just wanted to choose two. So problems can either crush you into silent weakness or motivate you to become exemplary and courageous and just do something that you wouldn't do. So do you believe in your mind right now, do you believe that things work for you or against you? What is your pattern? And we typically have one or the other, but whatever you believe, it's right, because it is a choice. You're choosing to believe that thought. And so to help move us from that direction, we have to do something different. So we have to think about what things good are happening because of what I'm experiencing right now. What are the good things that happen? Let's take the coronavirus again, and obviously this will be outdated later. I'll have to remake it, but let's think about what good things are happening because of this situation. We have time with family, right? We have time to ourselves. We can think and sit, and we're not worried about some other things that we would normally be worried about. We're maybe worried about different things, but we have different worries than we did. This is where the help of starting to learn and create a good mindset is going to be really beneficial, because in those fight and flight, in that logical and emotional brain, it fights against the abundance brain, the abundance mentality, because it's not logical and it's not emotional. It literally is thinking of a future possibility. And our brain doesn't like to think about a future possibility, and our emotionals don't know what to do with the future possibility, right? So the abundance operates right now, even though it's something that might come in the future. So we have to think and imagine that what is happening right now to us. And it changes our body chemistry, our mental chemistry, our brain chemistry, our emotional chemistry when we do that, when we really can believe and focus in on that. And in the beginning, it might only be 5 seconds of abundance. That's all we can do, because we haven't mastered this being the CEO of our mind yet. But that 5 seconds will turn into 10 seconds, which will turn into a minute, which will turn into 10 minutes and 15 minutes and hours, and a life where we have this abundance mentality. Whatever is coming to us is for our good. Even if it's a problem, it's there for us to learn, to grow, to be able to solve problems in the future, right? So think in your mind, I am learning everything I need to be successful. Everything that's happening right now is for my success. Somehow, everything always works out for my good. In the moment of losing a loved one, in the moment of getting a divorce, or leaving someone that has been abusive, or in that moment, it's uncomfortable, but we find good in it. Losing a loved one, we might now spend more time and refocus our love and attention on things that are really important to us that maybe have gotten away from us in the past. So there is always a way that we can spin this into abundance. And it's difficult in the beginning. It really, really is, because we have patterns that we've been learning through our whole life that pull against us a little bit. So remove yourself as the obstacle to your dreams, because it really is you. It's not the person that says no, who doesn't want to join your business or doesn't see it the way you see it. It's you. It's not being practical to think that way, to try and plan for the future. It's being oppositional. It's fighting against what you really want, the dreams that you believed were possible when you sat and heard the presentation, or when you used the products for the first time and they worked for you. You're just being oppositional in this moment instead of having that positive thing that you know in your heart. I hope that helps. Sometimes it's hard to put my finger on it. So it's hard to fight against decades of belief and buying into something that actually came to you when your brain wasn't even formulated. We have things from our past when we were children that we didn't really know and understand, and we created a belief around that. I'm going to give you an example from my own life. So my dad was military in the early 80s. There were cutbacks in the military, and he had an opportunity where he could stay in, but he had the potential of being let go, or he could get out. And if he got out, he would receive this sum, and my mom really wanted to move back to Utah. We'd been traveling all over the world up to that point, and she wanted to be by family again. And so my dad made that decision. Well, he came back to Utah in a horrible economy, 17% interest rates on when you were buying a home. And with this little bit of money, and we'd lost a lot because on our trip out here, we had a major accident. And anyway, long story short, a lot of trauma to get here. And so we moved in with my grandparents, and my dad went to look for work. And it was horrible, a horrible economy. There was nothing for pilots. He originally had a job working for Sundance, flying helicopters, and they said, we just can't do that right now. And so that was what he was coming home to, and he found out he didn't have it at all. They would use him, but not as a full-time person, as a part-time person. So my dad started picking up whatever jobs he could to provide for my family, our family. And at one point, he was working like 3 jobs, and he was maybe sleeping continuously, like in his bed at home, 4 hours. But he'd take a nap, or he'd drive from one job to the next, and then he would sleep in his car until that job started, and he was just working a ton. And I was the oldest, so I was very aware of what was going on and changing in my family. And there were times when my parents didn't have enough to feed our family. And we had friends that helped us. We had things that were going on. And one of my dad's friends happened to work at a grocery store. And he said every night, all the things that are like basically going to be out of date the next morning. So milk was, today's date, they're going to throw those away. And he said, what I'll do is I'll gather those, and I have to throw them away, but I'll put them in a box, and I'll put them on top of the garbage can. And I have this vivid memory of being in the car with my dad when he drove to the grocery store, and he pulled around back, and he got out, and he picked the box off of things that were going to be thrown out or discarded, and he put it in the car. And he came in the car, and he had tears coming down his face. And I didn't realize that had an impact on me, that put something in my mind about what I needed to do. It gave me a scarcity mentality. It made me think that this man who'd served his country and done all these things, that no one cared about him, and that I couldn't trust anybody to do what should be done, right? And so I was still fairly young, and I didn't realize how that triggered some things about food for me, about money for me. I became a person that I wouldn't go to movies with my friends. I would just make money and put it in an account in case of something that would happen. And it really, really, in a time that I just didn't even think that did anything to me. It was just that happened to my dad, and I owned that. My brain wasn't developed enough to see that through, and I was still living those kind of things into my late 20s and 30s. I had a difficult time ever spending money on things because I was always in that scarcity mentality, and that didn't serve me. It wasn't true. It wasn't accurate. It happened when I was emotionally vulnerable and I was young, and my brain didn't put all those pieces together. And as I was uncovering things later in my life, I'm like, wow, that's not serving me. So what I'm trying to share with you is that you have things from your own life that are not serving you, that are emotions that are tied to you being successful, whether it was someone told you you were a failure in school and that you weren't good enough and you weren't going to amount to anything, or you were in a relationship where that person demeaned you and you believed that. It's not true. You have potential. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. You just need to make the decision and move forward in that decision. Everything is possible to you. So that's when we say, whether you're right, whatever you feel is you're right, it's going to come true. So remove yourself from what's happened and stop fighting those decades of untruths that are locked into you, because they are not you. You're on this feedback loop of negative things that someone said to you 20 years ago or 5 years ago that you continue to hold on to. And nobody can change that but you. So you don't have to believe the impossible or the unimaginable to you, that you're going to walk across the stage, that you're going to be a multimillionaire, that you're going to be able to go on the vacations you want. And you don't have to believe that this very second. You only have to believe that you can grow, that you can change, that you can be better today than you were yesterday, even if it's the tiniest little increment. And I'm telling you, you can. I know you can. I've done it. I continue to do it. I have a long, long way to go. There's so many things that I uncover that are obstacles in my path, but I believe you can win, but I need you to believe that you can win. And I'm telling you, you totally can. So I hope this has been helpful. It's something that will be a lifelong journey for me and for you, but together and as a community of Sucavu representatives, we believe that your ceiling and your visibility is unlimited here, that where you are today does not determine where you're going to be tomorrow or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So please join us, live a CAVU life with us. Just commit to being a little bit better today than you were yesterday. That's all I want for you. So thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful. Sorry, everyone knows that I always say I'm a big boob, and I am. And hopefully you all love big boobs, because that's what I am here at Sucavu. So I love you guys. Thank you so much. I hope you are patient in the process with you, because we'll be patient with you and your leaders will be patient with you. So have a great night. Love you guys.